Greetings, I'm Ari. What we're going to discuss in the next few minutes is a board move that changes the rules of the game in the Middle East. And, without a doubt, it will impact the rest of the world in one way or another. For months, we've talked about loose pieces, a move here, a statement there. But today the puzzle has come together before our eyes, in Davos, Switzerland. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers from those expensive suits. In the waters of the Gulf, the engines of the fighter jets are warming up on the decks of the aircraft carriers. They believe that the signing of a peace agreement in Europe and the buildup of naval force off the coast of Iran are mere coincidences on the calendar. If they think that, they need to watch this analysis until the end, because the connection between both events. Maybe they are giving us the roadmap to where all this is heading, which could even happen in the coming days. Let's get into the subject. Let's start with Davos. At this meeting, world leaders gather, each with their own vision, to present their own future according to what suits each one best. And then, among all of them, to be able to align and adjust the machinery a little bit, well then, Donald Trump started the ceremony to officially establish the Gaza Peace Board, but be careful with the name, because it's the perfect disguise for Gaza. Only the origin remains. You need to read the fine print to understand this. This board was quietly born as point 9 of Trump's 20-point peace plan back then. Last September, it was vaguely described as a transitional body, but what was signed yesterday in Davos is not that. So, could we say it metastasized? It has become, according to its own charter, a permanent international organization designed to promote stability in any global conflict, with the explicit intention of replacing functions that the United Nations is no longer fulfilling. Listen to this carefully. Trump, as the lifelong president of this board, has created an exclusive club where entry costs $1 billion to get a permanent seat. And the list of members? It's a geopolitical earthquake. We have Israel, of course, which has been one of the main players here at the epicenter of the region where this whole conflict actually started. But look who else signed. Hungary, Belarus, and a crucial fact, 8 Muslim countries. This isn't just a hallway rumor. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Indonesia, Pakistan, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates issued a joint statement. Think about that for a second. Countries that fiercely compete with each other, like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, or Turkey and Egypt, are now aligned under a structure led by Donald Trump. The pressure on Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was public and notorious. And Riyadh, which had remained silent, finally had to fall in line. And there's one more guest. He has also left some European diplomats stunned. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, agreed to join Trump with his usual pragmatism. He justified it by saying, "I have some controversial people, but they are people who get the job done. If we only invited babies, nothing would get done." This is the scenario of an anti-United Nations, while France and the United Kingdom say no, or we'll see. Meanwhile, the Vatican with Pope Leo XIV asks for time to reflect and think it over. Trump has set up a parallel table with the players who have the weapons and the money. Now let's go a little deeper, one more level, because this is where the devil is, in the details. Within this board, a smaller and more powerful body has been created, the Gaza Executive Board, which will be presented this Friday. This is the real command center. Its mandate is to oversee the management of the Strip until the end of the year. 27 people sit on that closed executive committee. United States, United Arab Emirates, but also Turkey and Qatar. This is where the situation gets complicated, at least for Israel's interests. We're discussing how Jerusalem must handle issues daily, beginning with border protection. Sitting at the same executive table with the main ideological sponsors of the Muslim Brotherhood is a brutal double-edged sword. On one hand, Israel prevents Turkey and Qatar from operating on their own. It ties them to a structure led by the United States, but on the other hand, it gives them a legitimate voice and vote over the reconstruction and governance of Gaza for the next 2 years. And here, is it worth saying something about it? About Hamas, which remains cornered behind the yellow line watched by Israel? An ultimatum echoed in Davos because it wasn't just a diplomatic suggestion. Trump was blunt. There is no way forward without the release of the last hostage. The condition is absolute. And about the military future of the Strip, his message at the signing ceremony, it was a statement that sounded like a final judgment. If Hamas does not disarm, it will be their end. We're no longer talking about endless negotiations or shaky truces because the hostages were always involved. Trump has put a binary choice on the table for the terrorists in Gaza. Either they accept a total demilitarization supervised by this new board, or they face complete extinction. Something important before we continue. Many people in the comments write that they can't subscribe to this channel, and several even say that the subscribe button doesn't appear for them. So right now, check if this is happening to you as well, if the subscribe button appears for you, and even check if you're subscribed, because many people think they are, but in reality, they're not. Alright, all of this brings us to Israel's position. What is Netanyahu really looking for at this table? Is there a real politic logic? Israel gains institutional access by joining. It avoids the nightmare scenario where decisions about Gaza are made in Cairo or Ankara without consulting Israel. It's better, then, to be inside discussing the mechanisms of demilitarization and surveillance in front of Erdogan than to be outside receiving orders. Additionally, joining the board validates Israel's complete alignment with the Trump doctrine, something vital for the country's diplomatic survival. However, the cost could be sovereignty. Voices within Israel's own coalition and external critics point out a huge risk. The precedent? If today we accept that an international body, even if led by friends, manages Gaza, what argument will remain? When tomorrow that same board wants to apply it to Judea and Samaria within Israel's interests? It's as if the Palestinian conflict is being internationalized under the promise of security, but handing over the keys of civil management to a consortium where there are actors who don't wish any good for the Jewish people. It's an extremely high-risk gamble. So, while the ink dries in Davos, military attention is focused on Iran. Pay close attention to recent history because it explains exactly what's happening today. To see why the Iranian regime is trembling, don't just focus on the incoming aircraft carriers, recall what happened in June. The regime still hasn't recovered from Operation Rising Lion, nor from the attack of the blood weddings. In those events, Iran's top security leadership was effectively decapitated. The generals and advisors whom the supreme leader or Khamenei trusted were eliminated. Today, Khamenei, an 86-year-old man whom Trump has called sick, is surrounded by loyal but inexperienced people. Decision-making in Tehran has become erratic, chaotic, similar to the days of the Revolution of '79. Add to this the internal pressure, more than 4,500 people who have left the planet. Protests, say human rights agencies, are likely underreported due to regime ties, so actual numbers may be much higher. And an internet blackout that has lasted from January 8th until today. The regime is a wounded and cornered animal. I'll take this chance to clarify. Many people contacted me after the last video asking why I wasn't being clear regarding what the regime had done to the people who are no longer on this planet. Well, simply because I can't say it here, because I'm at risk of being blocked. So I have to moderate and handle my vocabulary very carefully, and instead, I appeal to your understanding. All right, let's continue. So, history gives us a clue about what could happen with this whole issue. With Iraq in 1988, the Ayatollah, the regime had to accept a ceasefire with Iraq, famously describing it as drinking a poisoned chalice. Today, Trump's strategy seems to be to force Khamenei to drink that chalice again, to force him to negotiate under the threat of total annihilation, because the threat is real. Let's look at the hard data of the current deployment. As of today, the United States is finalizing the concentration of forces in the region. The preparation window is expected to close in 1 to 2 weeks at most. We have 3 carrier groups in the area, including the United States ship Abraham Lincoln, currently operating in silence. Today, it stopped transmitting. We have F-Strike Eagle squadrons positioned and 30,000 additional troops. Not to mention the tons of arsenals that have arrived on different flights to the region, to different bases here, concentrating a large number of reinforcements, a large amount of firepower. Okay, and what about Israel? What is the security establishment doing? All right, the Chief of Staff, Eyal Samir, not only visited an airbase, he went to inspect the FXXV fleet in Nevatin, something we shared this week. The arrival of the new 3 Adir aircraft, which are joining this fleet, and now there are already 48 aircraft with state-of-the-art technology. The experience matters more than the aircraft. Samir reminded the pilots of their performance during the 12-day war with Iran in June. Israel has something that no other country has: pilots with real and recent combat experience against modern defense systems. When Samir says that Israel is prepared for a surprise war and to strike powerfully, it's not rhetoric. It's confirmation that Israel is not going to wait to take the hit if the United States attacks. Israel assumes it will be the target of Iran's immediate response and is ready to go on the offensive against the missile launchers from the very first minute. In closing, I invite you to connect the dots with me. Trump organizes a peace summit in Davos, charging $1 billion for entry, and seats Israel at the table, with Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt. At the same time, he deploys the largest recent naval fleet off the Iranian coast. It's no coincidence. The junta is the structure for political containment. At least that's how strategic analysts are seeing it. Trump is making sure that if he decides to attack Iran to force a regime change or a new nuclear deal, the main Sunni players are already committed to an alliance with Israel, and the United States has sold them shares in the new order before demolishing the old one. We're on the razor's edge. Diplomacy has been shielded in Switzerland so that force can be unleashed in the Gulf. So let's stay alert to everything that's happening here in the region. We're going to keep our eyes wide open. The weekend is coming when many things can happen, and there's a lot of noise everywhere right now, submerged in a deep military silence. So don't leave without subscribing, without turning on the notification bell so you know when I upload a new video, and of course, don't leave without leaving your like. See you.